Time for some more kitchen table astronomy with Mr. Universe, Dr. Salman Hameed from Kainaat, Pakistan's version of Cosmos, and from Hampshire College and the Five College area. But we're going to nerd out about something that is not exclusively astronomy today, Mr. Universe. We're talking about Legos.
That is correct, but it is still related to space.
Space Legos.
Exactly. And so we have talked about what's happening on the moon, and especially the interest of different countries to go over there. And one of the challenges is, how are we going to live there if there are settlements over there? And if you are going to construct, for example, habitat for humans.
Make them out of Legos.
That's correct, but you don't want to bring Legos from the Earth because, A, they'll be very expensive.
Have you tried to buy those Lego sets? They're outrageous.
My son is crazy about them, and I know,
Mine too.
So I don't think NASA can afford that.
No.
So the idea is that if you are going to build a habitat on the moon, you want to build it with material that is available on the moon. And so you don't have to carry, because a lot of the cost is about launching stuff, the stuff that you take from here. But if you can figure out a way to construct material that is over there, then that is the way to go. And NASA and also Chinese Space Agency, they're all working on how to create these things, in particular using 3D printing, because you don't want to put material over there. So that's the connection that comes in.
So instead of bringing the Lego Death Star set, let's say, to the moon, that's no moon. You would bring a 3D printer and print Legos, or the functional equivalent of Legos, on the moon and build habitats.
That is correct. And so right now, the reason we are talking about all of this is because European Space Agency has worked with, I don't know how much they work with, but certainly with Lego, the company. And they have used material that is from a meteorite, which is sort of 4.5 billion year old rock that fell in northern Africa. You will like the name of the meteorite. It's NWA.
Yes!
It's 69, but it's because it was northwestern Africa.
Oh, nice.
But still, NWA meteorite.
I can't wait till the Wu-Tang asteroid hits us.
That's right.
Some East Coast asteroid action.
So they used this meteoroid, grounded. It's used its dust because it's a little bit like what the kind of dust that is on the moon. They mix it up with artificial regolith, because regolith is the moon dust in some sense. What is on the moon? It's very powdery, and we do have on Earth material from the moon because the Apollo astronauts brought in about 800 pounds of that, right? But more recently, it's the Chinese that have brought in samples back, and we're going to talk about Chang'e 6 as well, that brought in from the far side of the moon. But in this particular case from Lego, they used this material from this asteroid that fell, or the meteoroid that fell on the Earth. They ground that up, mixed it with some other material that is a regolith simulant in some sense, and they used 3D printers to create a Lego brick, or some Lego bricks.
Which is the technical term. You're not supposed to call them Legos, if you didn't know this. Lego hates it when you call them Legos. Like I stepped on a Lego and I screamed because it hurt so bad. No, you stepped on a Lego brick.
That's right. And so they have this Lego bricks, and that is a way, and they're testing it out, whether that works or not. And you can imagine a lot of expert kids, astronauts or whatever, on the moon, they'll be putting those up on top, and they did test it out. I mean, you can imagine that it may be a little bit easier if you are putting bricks on the moon, and those are Lego bricks. They can fit up on top of each other, and that's how it's gonna work. So that's the good news about that they have those Lego bricks, and that's what they are planning on using on the moon.
Are they going to fit together like Legos with the same sort of structure, or is that not part of the process?
Well,
because those things, they'll hold together really well. They're hard to separate.
And
although really easy to just knock over after you did all this hard work.
Although the moon or moon regolith probably is going to be more sticky, so I think it would be hard to take them apart. Nevertheless, I mean, you can imagine these instructions coming in, and over there the astronauts have they spread out sort of like those instructions they are going through. It's like
in all these little plastic bags,
and then it's like I missed a step, so you have to go back. So no, that is precisely the point that you can do that.
Well, we'll have to talk to some of the experts in Lego who are coming to the area back in the middle of August. Once again, Springfield. Mass Mutual Center, they're having the annual Springfield Lego conference, and we had them on last year, and they do really incredible, fun stuff with Legos. But I bet they've never worked with space Legos.
And my son, by the way, loved that convention too, and he'll be going over there as well. But here is the thing. These Lego bricks, the ones that have been made from the space dust, if you want to say, or this meteorite dust, those are actually on exhibition in some Lego stores. Unfortunately, it's not nearby here. I think the closest here is on Fifth Avenue, Lego store on Fifth Avenue in New York City.
Which is really cool if you've ever been there.
I've not actually.
Yeah.
We'll check it out. But the other places, it's in the Disney ones in Florida and California, and Mall of America, and so there are a few places, and of course in Europe. So in Denmark, it's going to be there, and at other places. So these Lego bricks are on display. But here is the sort of a thing that makes me a little sad. On the one hand, okay, well, this is really cool. But I've seen there is a 1-minute video that they have for announcing this, and this is a partnership with European Space Agency and the Lego Corporation. And it makes me a little sad because it's all about an ad. I mean, in some sense, I don't know how much Lego actually worked with them, but certainly they are milking in terms of the ad part. And so if you look at even this 1-minute video which talks about how cool this is, that it's going to be on the moon, well, a lot of the focus is this display which shows Lego name prominently and kids looking around it and so on and so forth. So, and sure enough, kids are going to be inspired by that. But to me, this is one of those things that you have nationalism on one side, a nationalist propaganda on one side, where you go rah rah rah, like NASA or Chinese Space Agency, or reminiscent of previous Cold War as well, or this rampant commercialization, Lego bricks on the moon, have the logo on it. I don't know which one is worse, but I'm still right now, after seeing all of that stuff, I was tipping my hat a little bit towards nationalism. I'll go,
you would rather nationalism?
I would rather have the jingoism than this rampant commercialization
but
of
it's
that.
Lego. I mean, there are worse corporations. Look at Tang. Tang is trash food, but how I wanted to drink Tang as a kid because astronauts drank Tang or astronaut ice cream. That freeze-dried ice cream, that stuff's probably terrible for you, but I wanted it. But Lego, what a great and healthy but expensive hobby.
The last part, right? I mean, but expensive because anyway. So yeah, but that's a separate thing. But the point about talking about this is that humans are planning on going back to the moon. There are plans on having some sort of habitats being built. And now the question is how they are going to be built. And 3D printing is the way to go. But then how would it work? So that's exactly what's happening.
And now Chang'e 6 is the Chinese Space Agency's mission to the far side of the moon, often called the dark side of the moon as a misnomer. They have brought back lots of moon material. Are they making Legos?
Well, they're not making Legos, but yes, just on June 25th, their mission Chang'e 6 brought back samples from the far side of the moon. China is the only country that has landed on the far side of the moon, and it's tricky because you don't see that side. It's on the other side and not facing the Earth, and so in order to communicate, it's actually a little tricky. You need to have a relay satellite around it that can communicate with the lander. But this time they actually did not just land and have a rover there, but they dug in, got some samples, about 4 pounds, and then that lander sort of or part of it came back into orbit, rendezvous with the orbiting spacecraft, and then it head back to Earth and brought the samples back. This is an amazing feat, first of all, and it's been successful. This is a really systematic way China has been exploring the moon. So they had mentioned earlier on, sort of like their plan was to do moon exploration in 4 phases. Phase 1 was just to reach the orbit, and they did that with Chang'e 1 and 2 in 2007 and 10. Then it was like land, and then have a rover there. They did that to the near side in 2013, far side in 2019. And then they had, sample return, that was phase 3. They did that from the near side with Chang'e 5 in 2020, and now they've just done that in 24 with Chang'e 6. Now their next phase is a robotic research station and the South Pole, near the South Pole of the moon. And they have plans for Chang'e 7 in 26, and then after that, Chang'e 8 after 2026. And one of the things that they are planning on doing with Chang'e 8 in particular is that they expect a robot there to build, again, using 3D printer to construct actually some structures over there which will be used for later astronauts that go over there. Those astronauts are supposed to be there by 2030. So this, and again, we said this is 2024. We are not talking about a long time in the future. We are talking about in the next couple of years, where the Chinese robotic robotic machines are going to be building habitats for taikonauts from them to be there. NASA also has contracted some companies to build 3D, to have 3D computers to build habitats on the moon. So this is all part of going back and have settlements on the moon.
I think astronauts should be watching Lego Movie and Lego Movie 2 to see what their future is going to look like. They're going to be master builders and living in Legos on another planet. Everything is awesome.
And that is a funny film. I mean, Lego
really,
movies are actually
all the Lego movies are
those
really
are
funny.
actually really good.
Even the Ninjago Lego movie is funny.
Okay, I didn't see that one.
It's a good one.
But and one other thing I just want to close the loop in terms of what's been in the news regarding that, and that is that there was ultimately the goal is, or I shouldn't say ultimately, for some people the goal is to go to Mars and to use moon as a stepping stone, because you can have material constructed. And you're not just talking about habitats that can be constructed with 3D printing and using the local resources, but also, for example, launch pads. I mean, you can construct any material out of that, and so Legos can also be used for that from material on the moon. And I think yesterday or day before yesterday, just actually a day before yesterday, there was a analog mission, and that means that it's not a real mission, but sort of like being on Earth. But there was a simulation of having a more than a year-long mission to Mars, and there were 4 volunteers that were basically housed in it since 2023, and they just came out on July 6th after I think 378 days inside this habitat. And that habitat was actually created with a 3D printing with a material that they simulated what would be on Mars. So again, this is also happening here on Earth. I haven't looked at it, how they feel about it. They think that they're fine, but they just came out again, a 3D printed habitat, and from the expected, the size is like 17,000. So 17,000 square foot habitat, and there were 4 people that were there for over a year.
That's a reality show I would want to watch.
Well, unfortunately, people have plans for these type of things, and they want to put people in, and the Real Housewives of Mars.